Good afternoon. This is a Dvar Torah on Parashat Va'Eschanan. This parsha is the parsha that is always of the Torah, that is always read after Tisha B'Av. Now, Tisha B'Av is the saddest day in the Jewish calendar. Which we did in this year, we just had yesterday. It started Wednesday night, ended Thursday night. Which commemorates all the tragedies which arose when the spies slandered the land, and instead of trusting in God, the people, military-age men 20 to 60, and this doesn't include the Levium and the Kohanim, believed the lies of the 10 spies who slandered the land and didn't trust in God. Therefore, that whole generation was not allowed to go into Eretz Israel, and it took another 38 years to be in the Bamidbar desert, and only after they all died out, with the exception of Yeshua and Caleb, were able to enter the land. Hashem said that you're weeping now for no reason. I will give you many things to weep for at this time. And that included the destruction of the first temple carried on Tisha B'Av, the destruction of the second temple, the destruction of Beitar when it fell to the Romans in 135 Common Era, with massive slaughter by the Romans, and among other incidents, the Spanish Inquisition was the day of the expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492. It also was the day that World War I started, which led to World War II, and many historians say was with a 20-year truce was actually one world war, which led to the Holocaust, the killing of 6 million Jews, the signature of which the final so-called final solution was signed at the Wannsee Conference on Tisha B'Av 1942 in Germany. And Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait, local time, was on Tisha B'Av, which led to the Madrid Conference and many challenges, other challenges that we face, both external and to a certain extent internal. And from there, it's a very sad time. But as it also says in the Gemara, it is not enough that we can't continually mourn, in the sense of being totally depressed and unable to move. As the Gemara explains, how can one eat meat now after the sacrifices were abolished in the temple? How we can drink wine where there were libations? How can we even drink water where there was water libations? And the Gemara, the Talmud explains that despite that, and yes, we have to keep the loss in our hearts, and remember what we've lost and all the tragedies that have befallen us. We must go on living. And this is the theme of Shabbat Nakamu. It's the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av, where we're rising from the ashes. It's one of the seven Haftorahs of consolation. Every time there's a Torah parsha in Shabbat, we also be singing from the Nevi'im. I'll explain this in more detail next week's Dvar Torah. And we're still in the first half of the month where there is mourning. In fact, the last of the morning customs for Tisha B'Av only ended at halachic noon, which in Israel is 12:45 p.m. And however, there will be a change in the month, which I'll explain in more detail next time, called Tu B'Av, which is the 15th day of the month of B'Av. And even though we have to remember all of the sadness, it's a time where weddings, there are many weddings. It's a special day, which I'll be speaking about next week, as it's also relevant, starts a period that's relevant right almost to Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year, and an event. Therefore, Parashat Va'Eschanan is a combination in the context of the Torah of both positive things and admonition. We see in the Parsha begins with Moshe telling how we prayed to Hashem 515 times. If you'd been able to pray one more time, you would have been able to enter the land, but God said no, because if he had, there would have been severe consequences later for the Jewish people. And instead, said he did not, Hashem did not want to hear any more about it. He then mentions that Yeshua was going to take his place. One of the two from Ragli who said trusted in Hashem, the other being Kalev. Now, Moshe then goes on, and the rest of the parsha starts with saying all of the commandments that we have to keep. And he said, you see what happened to those people of Baal Peor, the ones who kept company with the Midianite women, and those who did not stop the men from keeping company with the Midianite women and engaging in immoral acts, were killed, 24,000 of them, till Pinchas killed Zimri and Cosby. And then Hashem stopped the punishment, and he is warning, but he says, those who cling to Hashem, your God, you are all alive today. So there's a common theme that those who do not follow Hashem's commandments will suffer the consequences, but those who do are alive. And it then goes into a recounting of how Hashem gave us the two tablets. The Aseros Dibros actually twice, because of Moshe broke the first set after the people sinned with the golden calf. He then commands that you shouldn't go to any graven images, make any gods of an image. Then he warns, when your children and grandchildren enter the land, they will make carven images, go into idol worship, and he declares the heavens and the earth will do it. And he then gives a warning that Hashem will scatter you among the people, and you'll be few in number, nations where God will lead you. Then you will serve gods, the handiwork of man, of stone, which should not see and do not hear, and do not eat and do not smell. However, despite all of that, Moshe says that if you seek Hashem, that if you seek him, and which I'll get back to this theme, you will eventually turn to him. He will not destroy you. You will eventually turn to him, and he'll redeem you. You have to make wonders. And it says, and possibly I want to come back to what happened in Sinai, Pasuk 35, chapter 4. Ata ra'ete da'at ki Hashem Elokim ein od novado. That you have been shown to know that God, that Hashem is God. There is none beside him. I'll be coming back to this. And then reminds that despite everything, he will redeem him. He then declares the three Ori Miklat cities of refuge, and talks about the land that we're going to be getting. Hashem and Moshe then reiterates the Aseros Vivros, 10 Commandments, all the laws, and minds the incredible miracles Hashem made at Mount Sinai. And he warns you need to fear Hashem, keep all of his commandments when you cross into Eretz Israel. And then he recites the first paragraph of Shema. And he again goes through this combination that you remember that the land was given to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, who did follow Hashem's commands. And there's again warning what will happen if you don't. And he then says how Hashem will liberate you from all the nations that are greater than you in the land of Israel, Canaan. And again warns that he will destroy the enemies, but again, if you don't, you're going to be facing challenges. And he warns that Hashem will clear all the enemies out of Eretz Israel, Eretz Canaan, and the people who join. Now, there's two themes I would like to deal with here. One of them is this whole theme of deliverance, which we got from Egypt, eventually when we get into Eretz Israel, turning away from Hashem, then being exiled into the nations. And I'd like to emphasize two pasukim here, which I think I will summarize this very well. Because it says, after we wonder what will happen if we sin, he says, Mihu Rachum Hashem Elokecha Lo Yifrei Yifkach Lo Yishchatesa Lo Yishkach Et Brit Aboseha Sechach Asher Nishva Lehem Shel Na Leyamin Rishon Ater Lefanai Min Hayom Asher Bara Elokim Et Adam Haaretz Yikasol Shemayim V'Kat Shemayim V'Micha V'Ha Gadol Hu Nishma Oku. Where he says, he will not abandon you. Hashem will not abandon you after us going into exile. He says, for Hashem, you God is a merciful God. He will not abandon you nor destroy you when you forget the covenant with your forefathers. As we swore to them, to inquire now regarding the early days that preceded you, when God created man on earth and he had one hand of heavens, the other of heavens. Is there anything like this seen of great? And he goes on to talk about how God created us, created the magnificent miracles of our Sinai, where we saw the Hashem came down from the mountain, and there was fire, and we heard Hashem's voice, and he explains how encourages people who are going into Eretz Canaan, how he took us from one nation and never done before, and took us out and rescued us, great miracles. And then it goes on to say, Hashem at Parashat 35, Ata re'esa l'das ki hu Hashem hu Elokim ein od milvado. And he explains that Hashem is Elokim. Rashi explains We're even shown to know at Har Sinai when the Torah was given that Hashem Elohim Eino Milvado. Rashi there explains that the 7 worlds above and the 7 worlds below all combined. Now there are a number of names for Hashem. Now, the one name that we know, it's the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. In fact, Shem has 7 main names, and these main names are Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is an Ephraim name, and there are 6 other names that are conferred, and these names are among them. Elohim. Now, Hashem is his merciful name. The name Elohim reflects world which he created the world with strict justice. It represents Hashem's aspect of quick justice. And after that, there is another name. And the other name that he gives is Adoshem, and among the other names are Savos and Shaddai. And now all these names should not be misinterpreted. They're all near the same unity. Hashem is one, he is only one. And even though different names show different attributes of Hashem, qualities of Hashem, they are all one name. And this is what is being talked about when it says Hashem Elohim Eino Milvado. And this is an important lesson we should take out of this parsha, because look, Moshe is summarizing the whole history in this parsha of the world, how we went down to Egypt, how we got out of Egypt miraculously, how we're going to cross into Eretz Canaan. Hashem's going to do more miracles for us there, but our children and grandchildren from his generation are eventually going to turn. And we've been through 2 exiles. The first one being the Babylonian exile, which lasted 70 years because of the sins of Adam, the Malcolm, Hashem, against man against God, while the other ones were second exile, which were now Adam in Rome for 2,000 years, and almost 2,000 years, 1,954 years, I believe, to be exact. And despite that, we have to take out of this that Hashem will redeem us. And when it talks about these 7 names, which really all one name, they're all one united God, he's teaching us something important. We're now living in very challenging times. Both Israel is facing both external threats and internal disunity. And beyond that, however, Hashem embedded in this parsha, in this pasuk, Moshe has, through Hashem, through Moshe, has given us a segula, a protection, where it says Hashem Elohim, your nephew name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is Elohim, that everything, both the spiritual and physical worlds, and all aspects of history, are all under Hashem's divine. He created everything. Everything is under his divine guidance. And this works not only on the macro level of the Jewish people as a whole, it, however, acts as a protection on an individual level, as Rav Chaim Volozhin, the Rosh Yeshiva of Volozhin Yeshiva, first Mon Lithuanian Yeshiva, student of the Vilna Gaon, said there is a segula Hashem Elokim Ein Milvado. If you truly believe that, and that He's guiding, God's guiding everything, and that everything you see around you, behind it is God, and you recognize God, and you keep concentrating that no harm can come to you. There was a famous story. This eminent Rosh Yeshiva in Nazi-occupied Europe went with his two sons. They were dressed as religious men, as rabbis, but by reciting these verses, miraculously, by the way, his wife and daughters had already escaped. He was virtually invisible to the Nazis, him and his sons. When they got to the border between German occupied Europe and Russian occupied, this was before June 1941, when the Germans attacked Russia. A further miracle with him reciting this pasuk. Two miracles occurred when they got to the border. They went at high noon across the German side. There were two German guards there on the bridge leading into Russian territory. At high noon, they were both miraculously asleep, which, if they had been caught by the commanders, would have been instant grounds for being shot. And when they got to the Soviet side, which was a communist regime in those days, not only people dressed like them, religious, would have been sent to Siberia for long sentences. Instead, they opened the gate. The guards of the NKVD, the predecessor to KGB secret police, opened the gate, saluted them, and let them go. Now, hopefully, we've never been, and there's been stories of various Khaylim soldiers in the Israeli army who have used this segula and its protection in miraculous ways in battle. And even though hopefully we will not need such an open and easy miracles, however, we should still realize in this time of trouble to inspire us in this getting up from the ashes to rejoin normal life after Tisha B'Av, that Hashem is guiding everything, that He is our true guide and our true protector. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.